Welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we'll be listening to Bluey Pays the Bills, capitalizing on childhood trends to reimagine your store's inventory and layout. A session that was presented at Winter Institute 2025 in Denver, Colorado.
Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. I heard there was a little bit of sleepy in the room, so we're going to wake you right back up by singing a theme song all together. Are you ready? You have joined us for Bluey Pays the Bills, which is capitalizing on trends and licensed product to reimagine your store's inventory and layout. Quick, just show of hands. How many children's-only stores do we have in the room today?
None.
Wow, welcome to the dark side. We have cookies. How many general stores with a strong children's section? Thank you so much. And then how many people who support bookstores in a wide variety of wonderful ways? Thank you, friends, for joining us today. My name is Cynthia Compton. We're going to do quick introductions in a second, but I'm going to be your moderator today. The normal housekeeping that you're expecting. The reason that I asked if you had downloaded the app is that all of our slide deck and handouts are found in the app. When you click on session details, you'll then see live links that you can pull up everything you see. So you don't have to write anything down. You can simply follow along and make eye contact with us. The next part is my own personal confession. I am a highly competitive person about really stupid things. This is not a stupid thing. There is a contest for which session gets the most survey responses. Let me underscore that. You can fill out the survey responses in the app right there next to our session, and we would love for you to share any feedback. It's not about who gets the highest score, it's about who gets the most responses. So we're looking for honest feedback that we can use to inform future sessions. This is how the education department develops its material and the list of things that booksellers want to hear about. It's really important. Do the surveys. This will be a recorded session, and then it will be available both on BookWeb and Book AD, which is the series of recorded sessions that you can access. Because of that recording, we're going to ask that you silence your cell phones and your other devices. And when we get to Q&A or comments or heckling, we would like for you to be individually mic'd. So if you would just raise your hand, our fearless leader, Jen, will bring a microphone to you so that it can be captured on recording. If you get so enthusiastic that you shout out your question ahead of time, we're going to ask you to repeat it into the mic for the purposes of the recording. Good? Good. Thank you so much. Okay. I think we did all that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Great.
All right. I also get the joy of reminding you of the antitrust guidelines. We are always, of course, encouraged to share ideas and support during the conference, and we come to learn from each other. However, the Sherman Antitrust Act prohibits us from discussing in this room any price or pricing policies, any suggestion of boycotts, or dividing up the market among our stores. All of these can be written or can be read in complete detail on bookweb.org, but we're fine, right? We got that one. Okay, I'm going to skip the session description because you already read it, otherwise we wouldn't have been in the room. Here is a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, but most importantly, let's introduce our panelists. So, who wants to go first? Nicole?
Everybody's pointing at me.
There you go.
Hi, I am Nicole Brinkley. I am the manager of Oblong Books in Rhinebeck, New York, and person who generally does a variety of other things at any given time. My pronouns are she, her.
Hi, I'm Lily Clay. I am the kids buyer and manager at Eagle Harbor Book Company on Bainbridge Island. We're just outside of Seattle. And my pronouns are also she, her.
Hi, I am Allie Sussmat. I am the children's buyer manager and a kids events manager at Changing Hands Bookstore in Tempe and Phoenix, Arizona.
And we've already slightly been introduced, but my name is Cynthia Compton. I own 2 stores in Indiana. I own 4 kids' books and toys. Thank you for the Indiana shout out. Hi, Leah. And 4 Kids has been around for 22 years, and I am the chief floor cleaner, toilet unstopper, buyer, do all of that stuff. And 3 years ago, in a COVID fever dream, I opened a general bookstore called MacArthur Books, which is in Carmel, Indiana, north side of Indianapolis. This is such a fun panel, and I have learned so much in working with them. So I'm excited for our conversation today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. All right. Okay. Nicole, you want to sort of take us through the background a little bit of what are we talking about when we're talking about licensed characters and IP?
So, you probably have a preconceived notion in your head of what a licensed character is, and some of you will be correct about that. So a licensed character, we have a wonderful definition up here, but it's a fictional character who has been legally obtained or licensed by an outside corporation. So that means that ownership rights to publishing books, etc., belong to a larger company. IP can also be created in-house. So for instance, some chapter books you really love or children's series you really love might be the IP or intellectual property of a publishing house, meaning that they came up with the idea in the publishing house and assigned it to an author, but they own the rights to those characters. So you might guess Bluey is one such character. But it is a much wider range than you think it is, and that can help you take advantage of it. For those of you who don't know what intellectual property is kind of an intangible idea, but it's an intangible work, ideas, artistic creations, designs, inventions. We will be using it here to talk usually about characters or specific book adaptations of other traditional medias.
We have some open-ended questions in here about what licensed characters and IP that are currently carried in bookstores. But you see examples both on our clothing today and in lots of examples that we're going to run through lists of the most sort of financially impactful licensed characters in the marketplace right now. Why do we care?
I wanted to share a little bit of an anecdote about we came up with this panel, a while ago and have talked about this and know we were doing it. Last Wednesday, I flew in here on Saturday. Last Wednesday, I was in my store and with one of my coworkers who has been in the industry for a long time as well. We had a discussion about moving Bluey and some of the other pop culture figures to a more prominent location. And we had a little bit of a disagreement, a tiff. Where she was like, but we are an indie store. We want to give our, parents and kids good media. So we don't want to highlight or prioritize where these, licensed characters are going. And I was like, you are the reason I'm on this panel. Like, this is what we are talking about, is that there's a stigma in indies specifically around, we're going to be hoity-toity and we're going to, really care about high lit. Which is good in all of these things, and we want to embrace, new stories and new things, but we do need to embrace these licensed characters for a financial stability as well as meeting our families and kids where they're at. So I really wanted to share that about why we're doing this, why it matters. These standards and things are still occurring. I just want to share that.
One of the things that we talk about in our store, and we especially talk about this during fourth quarter, when you see what we affectionately call Creaster customers, those are the people that go to church on just Christmas and Easter, the folks that you only see during fourth quarter of the year. They are not tremendously familiar with the breadth and depth of literature in a children's store, and many times just coming in the door can be overwhelming. At that time of year, we always look to have familiar things on face out. It allows people to come in the door, connect with something that they recognize, exhale, drop their shoulders a little bit, and you can almost see the idea popping in their head. Oh, I know about this stuff. I belong here. In my business, I think licensed characters are one of those tools. It's not the only tool. You can also use classic children's lit. You can use displays and colors and themes that create familiarity. But licensed characters for us are another one of those, oh, I belong here. This is my space too, ways to bring people further in to learning about literacy and children's books.
And speaking of classic children's lit, like I said, the expanse of IP is much wider than you think it is. Eric Carle is IP now. That is why we still have all of those new Very Hungry Caterpillar books coming out. That is now a licensed property. For me, it is much like you said, Cynthia, where I lovingly trick my customers, and that is I want them to come to me excited, and I want to maintain that level of excitement, and giving them an accessible point to begin with means that I can go, oh, Bluey's so good. You know what you'll like if you like Bluey? And be able to move them into more unique properties, things that they might not have known about otherwise. We have a little Jeopardy question.
Yeah, in 55.62 billion minutes were spent watching this television show. Everybody knows Jeopardy, and that's a very, very, very large number. At the same time, 55.62 million minutes of Bluey were just streamed on Disney+. Bluey is a new property. Jeopardy's been around forever. Like, that weight of letting that sink in and what that means for families. And a lot of the times Bluey is just on in the background. But that Jeopardy is ubiquitous. Bluey is now just as much so.
I think it's also important to point out, and we were talking about this in one of our early meetings, that if one person in a family knows about a licensed character like Bluey, everyone in the family is going to know about Bluey, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about sort of capitalizing and how to move into this space in our stores and what value that they can sort of add, not sort of, what they can add. Who wants to do a quick review of numbers here? There's a lot of numbers on this screen, but let's look at some trends.
Let's talk about numbers. I do want to give a shout out. These numbers come from Circana's incredible data pool, and most specifically from Brenna, who is sitting in our very front row. Brenna has a presentation tonight at 5:30. I know it's late. Be there. It is the most interesting thing you will learn. She gives you data on all of the book sales across the United States right now, and it is fascinating. And that is where this information comes from. So if you look at the divide of what people are reading from the kids side, so infant 0 to 3, young readers 4 to 8, middle readers 9 to 12, you can see that licensed properties are high up there. You'll notice Bluey dominates. You'll also notice Taylor Swift is IP. Like I said, there's a much wider range than you think there is. We saw spikes with Super Mario Brothers with the movie. You can see Roblox up there. Dr. Seuss is IP now. So you have classics mixed in there along with television adaptations, comic adaptations, movie adaptations, IPs that have been bought, rights have been bought by traditional publishers and turned into books. And those are huge. Those numbers are huge. I'm not going to read all of them to you. It's too much work, but those are huge numbers. And as a reminder, if you are taking photos with your phone, it's also in your app. Reason to get the app.
I also just want to point out, and Brenna, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was at Children's Institute that you said that the Golden Book of Taylor Swift at that time, so back in June, had sold something like 3 million units itself. Just the Golden Book.
That's incredible. When I look at these numbers, well, I probably wouldn't break it down in terms of a buying budget and say I'm going to buy X percentage more of, based on the core here. I would probably group some of these themes together and think about, okay, well, looking at infant readers, how many of these are represented in my board book section? How many are represented in my picture book section? How many are represented in my middle grade section? And I would probably pull turn and just find out how these numbers played out in my own location and stores. Each market is slightly different. Our cable access and our time of day of when people are watching things is slightly different regionally. But I would probably use this as a data point tool to gather for my own turn.
And then my favorite thing when I first saw these numbers is exactly that. Some of these don't sell as well for us. And then when I looked back, it's because we weren't carrying them in the quantities that we should have been. And when we started, it was like maybe we had one Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle title. So bringing in 3 to see how they did exponentially rose. And it was a little bit of that pushback of, well, I don't want to oversaturate, my 8x8 spinner with just some of these licensed characters. And it's like, well, my 8x8 spinner isn't selling what's on there. What is selling are these things. I need more of those titles. And taking a little bit of that, the data to back up the buying purchases.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the things we've already discussed, but then why? Why do we do this? Anybody want to talk about why they carry these in their own store and what their success is?
Yeah, I think I was a school teacher before I became a bookseller, so I have a lot of respect for what kids are and I guess are not reading. And Nicole and I were talking about this earlier today, of that it's important to just get kids like on the path to reading. So licensed characters are a great place to start because it's something they can connect with. It's something they know already. And so they're automatically going to be drawn to those things. And then you can start with if you like Bluey, here's what you should read next.
For me, it's also about building trust with people who are coming into your bookstore. Our regular customers who already know us are tremendous, but there will always be people who are coming in for the first time and who want to become regular customers and who want to come back. And being able to look not just at them and be like, oh, I have this thing you want, but to be able to talk about it with respect and be like, oh yeah, I have this whole Bluey display for you. Let me know if you need help finding anything on it. Oh, here are where our Pokemon books are. What's your favorite Pokemon? Because mine is Vulpix, right? Being able to understand it on some level in a way that the kid automatically grasps and the adult grasps is like, oh, you understand what my kid likes. This is a lifeline. I can come back. And it creates these connections that not only build stronger community bonds, but allow us to work on the increasingly terrible child literacy problem. Because the first step to getting kids to read is getting a kid to read, no matter what that is. They have to start somewhere. And so if that thing is a Bluey book, if it's a Pokemon guide, I am here for it because it means that they're coming into my store and I can bring them to that next level of literacy and reading and community building.
Yeah. And I think it also reaches your customers that are just stopping in because they're going to a birthday party and they don't know anything about this child. And they're not going to maybe ask a bookseller because they don't have time of, I don't know if this kid's into sports. I don't know what they are, but I think that they're into Bluey because as Lily said earlier, if one kid in that family is into Bluey, everybody, even the extended aunts, uncles, and cousins know about Bluey. So it does allow you to reach not just your customer base, but those impulse shoppers, those people that are just stopping in and they trust that the store is going to have something. You always have something on hand that's going to reach them. And you don't know if that connection of, hey, I bought something, my nephew loved, you had this, what else do you got? And now you have a customer that would have just been an impulse buy become one of your customers, as well as, talking about the bestsellers and looking at what's on those. Sometimes we see, the Bluey leveled reader was on, or the early reader was on there. The Pokemon guide was on there. It is that idea that if they're reading a cereal box, they're still reading. If they are reading that guidebook, if they're even looking at one of the, IP sticker books or things, they have something to engage with that is going to take them over that next hurdle, that next step. And as we see IPs grow with them, they're gonna find, hey, I've seen all of the Bluey episodes. I have all of the Bluey books. What else do you got?
And I think when we're thinking about that opportunity to hand sell and upsell to our customers, as we are moving into an increasingly tumultuous state of affairs in our wonderful, glorious country, one of the things we have to consider is the fact that finances are going to be strained, and IP books are often at a cheaper price point, right? One of the things I've been working on in my store is making sure I have books at lower price points for every reader across the spectrum, bringing in more bargain books for adults, bringing in more bargain books for kids. And the good news about IP is not only is it accessible to these kids, but often it is priced in such a way that they will have better access to them, in a way that they might not necessarily be able to afford a glorious $20 hardcover, right?
So one other point that we didn't get onto this slide was the skill of browsing for children. As kids have less and less time in their school day and perhaps don't even have media center or library time built into their week, the skill of actually shopping for books, looking at a series of shelves and picking out things that you like, that's a skill. It has to be practiced. Our 8x8 spinner at my kids' store is right up by the register, and I frequently ask kids while they're waiting, usually with their parents for a gift to be wrapped, hey, would you go ahead and just sort that bottom part and put the cool books in the front so that kids can find them? They will then rifle through my golden book or my 8x8 spinner, pull out the characters they like and put them up front. Yes, it's facing work. Yes, I'm not paying them for it, but I'm giving them an opportunity to browse, and I'm giving them a task to do, and I'm creating familiarity with the concept of rifling through books and pulling things that you like and bringing them to the front. That's a skill that we have to practice. Licensed characters are often a very easy way and an entry point because they want to pull the cool ones towards the front. And so I offer that if it's helpful for you as well.
I have two other things I just had thought of, and for when we're talking about this, it's not just reaching kids; it's also reaching adults. We're hearing more and more about capitalizing on nostalgia, and the Golden Books are coming out with a lot of their Golden Book biographies, and those visages of people are, or even like the Disney Parks ones, are capitalizing on the nostalgia, and you might have somebody impulse buy something because it means something from their childhood. Also, you're seeing some of these properties like Minecraft or Five Nights at Freddy's that are reaching teenagers or young adults that are then allowing these reluctant readers that maybe haven't read since they were kids to connect with something. We've seen that historically with people pushing back about comic books, and comic book characters are just for their youth. We're seeing more and more adults gather around those again. You're going to start seeing more of these intellectual properties and licensed characters be geared towards adults and upper teens, as the reading crisis has, these kids that were stuck in it are teenagers, young adults that haven't read. This is their way back into your store as well. So when we're talking about some of these paths, we're not just talking about children. It's an intergenerational bridge.
Absolutely. Let's talk about a little bit about identifying future trends. How do you know what's cool? How do you find out what to go on from there? We want to talk about IP franchises that are coming this year and how you identify what's cool for your store.
I think one is asking the kids that we see in our section, listening, asking our booksellers, hey, have you had kids come through? What are they looking for? Maybe what are we not carrying? Having the ear to the ground on TikTok and looking at Circana trends, as well as what movies are coming out this summer, like really looking into the catalogs as well of, what do publishers have coming out that, I didn't even know this was being made into a leveled reader, but if we're really excited about it, then that's probably something I should know about. So like How to Train Your Dragon with the new live action is a really big one. We're seeing, Wild Robot is now, that's a huge thing, and that's getting the picture book. As well as some of that nostalgia with Looney Tunes getting some rebrands. A whole bunch of Calico Kids are getting rebrands. You're seeing some of these things that if they're popping up in gifts lines or sidelines lines or frontlist catalogs, you're like, I guess this must be a big thing if enough publishers are putting the same IP out into the world.
I have my desk back in the kids section, and so I overhear a lot of their conversations. And so it's one of the ways that I find different things that I should bring in is if I hear it enough times throughout the day of like, oh, they don't have this, then I'm going to make a note and I'm going to try and find something to add to my 8x8 spinner or one of my other many spinners. So just listening to what they're talking about, even if they're not talking to you, but they're talking to each other, is a great way to find out. And then also like looking at your catalogs, my reps are really great about telling me if there is a movie coming out. So this is probably going to be big come July. That I'm going to keep my eye on it and pay attention to how it's doing in the months leading up to it.
And I'm in a bit of a unique position because I'm not a buyer. I am fully on the floor all of the time. So what comes into the store is not in my hands. However, I would emphasize to your staff and to yourselves not being afraid to just ask children questions. It seems very silly to tie a panel about Bluey back to Ocean Vuong's beautiful keynote earlier this morning, but what is it you like to read? Kids will tell you. And often if a child said something that we've never had in the store before, I'm like, oh, I can order that for you. And if they come back or a second child says it, that's when I email my buyer and I'm like, hey, there's some kids in the community who like this. Let's get some stuff in. Hey, we need some kids books about soccer in Spanish. Hey, There's a new movie about this coming out, and like 5 kids were just in the store talking about it. And making sure that you're communicating, if you are not the buyer, communicating openly with your buyer on staff and encouraging your staff to do the same. Having that information and being able to talk directly to kids and ask them enthusiastically, because kids want to tell you what's cool so bad. Just ask them and they will tell you what's up and what they're interested in.
When a kid comes and asks you for a recommendation, if you don't have it, instead of saying like, oh no, I don't have it and walking away, ask them, what is it about? Say, oh, I don't know about that. Can you tell me why you like this? What's cool about it? And they'll give you full word vomit of what their favorite thing is.
And it might not even be, again, coming back to what is a licensed character versus IP. If there's like Chaperone is playing in your city, you're going to have kids look, does Chaperone have a sticker book yet? Does Chaperone have like a who is Chaperone? Like, those things also matter. Like you're going to have people that like, Taylor Swift is in my store or my city, or I don't know, there's a new insert person here thing that might be coming through your city or your region. A new album just dropped. Like people are going to then want to bundle those things. They're going to want that excitement. They're going to want that joy. So letting kind of also what's happening regionally and locally to you inform like, hey, I need to know what's going on at our like music venues nearby. I need to know maybe what our school like teachers are doing if they're going to celebrate, the 100 Days of School. Are they theming it out with Eric Carle? Are they theming it out with Dr. Seuss? Do I need to have more of that on hand? Really listening to your educators and what your community needs as well.
We're going to talk a little bit now about integrating product and different ways that different stores integrate product into their stores and into their displays and how they make it work for them. I want to say that one of the things I want to say before we go to the next slide is that in our store, and we'll show some pictures of all of our stores with different sections in them, that we integrate both in individual sections, but also vertically in themed sections. So, for example, the Bluey potty book goes in the potty section, not in the Bluey section. Everybody who's licensed who learns how to poop learns in the same section of our store. So you'll find bibliotherapy in a wide variety of areas, and you'll find licensed characters in a wide variety of areas. So we're not just saying, you have to have a Pokemon section. You may find Pokemon scattered throughout, and maybe you don't choose to do a Pokemon section, but maybe you integrate those into other places within your store. How about the rest of you? How do you do it?
I think for us, we have a pop culture section. This is not
That's not your slide.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. Hello.
Hi, we're up. So we integrate in a few different ways. We do have a kids entertainment section, which I actually store in alongside our toys, right at kids' eye level, so that when they go wandering for toys, they actually see books about their favorite things instead. So next to all of our building kits are our Lego stuff, etc. And I also do themed displays. You'll notice here in my challenge of think wider about IP, I have a Studio Ghibli display that has been up in my store for 3 years because I can't stop selling books off of it. It lives there forever now. We've started buying sidelines specifically to put up with them, and it has done incredibly well. And that is in a catty area of our store that is in our kids section, but also kind of faces adult. And so it brings in adults who have the nostalgia factor, but also kids and families who are really excited because they recognize Totoro, or, oh, I didn't realize Kiki's Delivery Service was a book. I want to share that with my family. And putting it just under our little counter space, right where people can see it right away, becomes a point of conversation and engagement with those customers. And then, oh, you like Studio Ghibli, you like Howl's Moving Castle. Did you know it was a book? Did you know she has other books? If you like books like that, you might like Ryan Groudon's New Middle Grade, and being able to, again, continue those conversations. So that for me is right under one of my counters, and very visible in the store where people can see it.
On the right.
Advance.
You're right. On the right, talking about integration and nostalgia, I have all of my sort of classic baby shower gift books in one spot, and then I have integrated some of the new, like the Bluey, like My Dad is Awesome, or the Eric Carle Thanks books also into that, because they also are great, like, new options to give, because sometimes everyone has Goodnight Moon and they don't need another copy, but these are similar ones that you can give to them.
I do love that section. It's really good. Okay, so when deciding what to get and where to put it, obviously we put these pictures together when Taylor was still on tour. So who wants to talk about knowing what's trending?
I will say some of us still have to have a Taylor Swift display only because there's so many books.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, we pulled all of them out of the music section because the music section, as we all know, sometimes music biographies don't sell as quickly. And we've pulled all of Taylor out because it overwhelmed those other titles, and now Taylor has a tower, so it's the Taylor Tower. Because yeah, people see it, it's right on the aisle, and it is one of those that it's an impulse grab for almost every child or adult that walks by. They think it's funny that there's so many Taylor Swift things, and it is refilled twice a week.
The picture on the right of this slide with the open locker doors for kids, we use licensed character displays frequently to cross-merge with non-book merchandise, which is what you're seeing here. So the backpacks, the friendship bracelet kits, let's see, what else do I see there? I see some little stuffies. All of that tying together. This is birthday party blindfolded. You know, you grab a book, you grab a thing, you go to the front, we wrap it in pink, it has glitter wrap, you're out the door.
I would also point out that you'll notice one of the key things about these displays, if you're going to do an IP display, is there are options across age ranges. So Taylor Swift has picture books. She has books that are aimed at teenagers and preteens. She has Mad Libs. There are books about her poetry. And then I often will weave in books for adults for the teenagers who are stopping in. My Studio Ghibli has the same one. Depending on obviously where your display section is and where you are, that might fluctuate, but don't be afraid to intermix your age categories in a themed IP display, because it will often work out very well, again, in terms of grabbing the whole family and not just one specific child.
Where do we put it?
And these are all our different stores. We have 2 locations. In one of our locations, we had Bluey in, not a centralized location. Bluey was in the spinner, Bluey was in the other spinner, Bluey was in the TV section. And people were like, can I just have one Bluey space? And we have stairs that lead up into the kids section. Bluey now lives there. Nothing has sold from this wall. You kind of like walk up the steps and you just bypass it. Bluey is now the gravitation. That's that bottom photo on the right. Big poster that was just cut off of the Bluey display that we got. We just cut it up and made it a poster. And now what was a dead section anchors people into the section. They see Bluey first, and now they are on our kids' stage into the rest of the age-specific things for those children. And then the 2 photos on the left are from our smaller location where our shelf space is very hard to come by. We have to be really unique with it. But right when you walk in the front door, you see the leveled reader and the golden book spinner and the Who Was spinner down the middle aisle. So when families walk in, they are in the kids section. They have seen the IPs. They are drawing them in, and on either side, that's board books, that's middle grade. They are now in a family unit space. Anchored at the end of that is the Bluey display. We have kept the display that we got from the publisher. It has held up really well. It's got a lot of love. It's got a lot of Bluey stickers on it, but it is kid height. And again, shelf space is hard, but prioritizing that it's right front and center and that it gets refilled and it's right next to gifts as well as some of the other IPs. So it really anchors the section and draws people in. And it is now the end. They have walked through all other ages to get there.
I would point out as well when we're talking about using it as an anchor, again, it will depend on what store you're in. So like if I were to put IP in a dead zone, it would just still be a dead zone. But if I put it on a prominent display, it sells really well because it's people who wouldn't have realized we had it. I would encourage you to not be afraid to experiment in your own store, to make a display in a new space, try it out for 2 weeks to a month, track your sales, see how it does. If it doesn't perform the way you want it to, move it to a new spot, see if it performs better there. You have to kind of like do a little bit of data management, but experimenting and learning the flow of your store and the flow of your customer base will help you immensely when it comes not to just to selling IP, but to selling anything in your store.
We talked a lot when we were planning this discussion about putting licensed product in impulse displays. I think a lot about what is in a kid store, what is the height of the customer and where is the shelf? So eye level means different things to different customers within our store. So what is the height of the customer? Where does it belong on the shelf? Consequently, this picture on the right looks like a Pokemon section for us, which is immediately adjacent to graphic novels, and it literally rolls from one into the other. And these are kids that are on small rolling stools that are scooping up and down our tiled floor in front of graphic novels, and we scoop right down in front of Pokemon.
And we have, we have Minecraft and Five Nights at Freddy's leading right into our teen section. They are like teen height, and the shelf guides you into that section. So if they're already looking at it, their eye light is the big sign that says teen and young adult. So if they might not have gotten to the fiction section for their age group, they have stopped at the graphic novels that have caught their attention that they are familiar with. And we had those books in 1,000 different places and ran the numbers and tried it in this spot and saw not just an uptick in those sales, but as well as getting some of those readers walking into section and actually looking at books they would have not otherwise seen.
And you'll see on the left for me, that is the kids entertainment section I mentioned to you. So you'll see it's mixed right in with toys on top. You can see my little bin of Crazy Aaron's Thinking Putty. But there's a whole row on top that is just Star Wars, Lego, Pokemon, and it's mixed in next to all of those toys. So it feels more accessible and fun, but it's right where kids can see it.
This is my store. So we have our pop culture section right next to all of our gift items and games, so that there are those impulse buys and they're all at kid height. So if you see, like, they're looking at the Bluey and they're looking at the Dungeons and Dragons, and then they turn and they're like, oh, look, that's a cool card game. I want that as well. So it's also great for like birthday parties and parents coming in being like, I have no idea what to get this kid. I don't know. Then they can pick whatever.
Yeah, and this doesn't just apply to books, it also applies to gifts and sidelines as well. We have a little aisle that is Toy Lane that has all of the, bins of the impulse grabs that is on the ramp that leads you to the book section for kids. And so again, this could apply to so many different things, not just books, but I know there's also some sidelines and gifts people in the room as well, thinking about how your store is laid out. Sometimes you might have to switch where things are, but if you're leading them with some of like the Klutz or a golden book, you're going to then guide them to maybe a deeper, or like that next step of age group or next step of IP.
Boy, we sent in a lot of pictures. I'm kind of proud of us. All right. I'm going to talk about evaluating. You can't evaluate which you can't measure. So what do we suggest you do, friends?
Get data.
Track your shelf turns. It's a huge one. Try new sections, run sales every, 2 weeks when you try a new section. Track a specific title, track a specific thing. Create spreadsheets. I'm terrible at spreadsheets, so that's me also, telling that to myself.
Yeah, I track keywords and I track the sales of different keywords.
And as the non-buyer, I'm doing anecdotal data. So are people stopping to talk about the displays? Do I see customers engaging with them? Are they engaging with them but not buying things, meaning they're interested in the topic, but the books are not quite right? Being able to take all of that to tweak my displays in real time accordingly and then funnel that information back to our buyer.
As we were planning to talk to you today, our conversation shifted because obviously all of our stores integrate IP and licensed characters into our displays. So we realized that we had this unique opportunity because there would be publishers in the room and we could ask for other things that would be helpful in this area. So this next slide is going to start that conversation. This is our wish list of other things that we would like to see. After that, we're going to move into Q&A and comments. So please feel free to add to our wish list. They have a tremendous opportunity with all of these booksellers in the room to hear what you think as well. Here are the things that we think indies need more of. Nicole, do you want to start and then we'll just roll down?
Oh, I love all of these so much. Accessible books in Spanish. There are a lot of Spanish-speaking kids who come in, a lot of kids who might speak English but come from a bilingual household where their parents only speak Spanish and they want to read books with them. And having books that are accessible to them about Bluey, IP about their favorite soccer stars, would be tremendously helpful. We moved a ton of these over the holidays, and I would like to see that continue to be expanded.
Some straight to paperback editions, from an affordability standpoint, they're a lot less expensive than a hardcover. And so often that's what a kid can buy with their money that they've earned doing chores. And sometimes due to our economic situation that we're in right now, that's what a parent can afford.
And bundles and bind-ups are huge. If, a parent's going to buy 4 of a title, it's easier if they can buy it at a cheaper price point. Or if it's a bind-up and they're able to get multiple stories in one thing, those with an IP would be huge, and just more in general for even existing series.
When we move into novelizations of recent movie releases, we need shorter ones. We need to think about the audience that's going to be sitting in that theater, and we need to provide these books as gateways to other levels of reading. So we're going to use the familiarity and the cool factor of the movie. We need shorter novelizations, obviously, paperback.
And we need more crossover titles. And I don't mean YA to adult. We have enough of those. No, we need more crossover titles in terms of, one, like IP literally crossing over into books, but also that nebulous chapter book to middle grade range where a lot of kids, because of the literacy issues in America right now, are really stuck. Being able to do that and have that like crossover area, having illustrated novelizations, hitting that sweet spot, would do loads, not just in terms of sales, but also to move that literacy issue forward.
What do you need? And what would you like to ask us, and what would you like to tell us about? We're going to move into some conversation with the group in the room. And again, we're going to ask you just raise your hand so that we can mic.
Hi, I was just wondering if anybody has any information or has had any success with dyslexic-friendly young, because I've gotten a lot of feedback on that, and trying to expand our section. So I just wanted to know if there was any more information on that you can share.
That has been one of my quests. I know Bloomsbury Adult in the UK has a new dyslexia-friendly book line that is written in a specific type font. One of my goals actually here was to talk to publishers and see what they are doing and what they're up to, because I've also gotten that request as well. My answer is, unfortunately, I don't know anything that can help you yet, but it is also on my mind. It did also... Union Square is, I'm hearing a yell of Union Square. So let's all go talk.
Walker.
And Walker. Great. I'm going to go talk to Union Square and Walker, and so are you.
I believe Baker and Taylor is also on it.
Baker and Taylor. Fantastic.
And there are more things coming up too with early readers and beginning readers that are focused on phonetics and have certain chapter books. It's like this one is focusing on the ah sound or the e sound. More and more of these, especially indie presses or smaller presses, are coming out with these, and they are glorious. And having tried a few of them to see what stuck, they are selling.
And also speaking of reading with disabilities in terms of IP, adults with intellectual disabilities love IP books because they love, we had a gentleman who came in who loved Sonic, and we were able to hook him up with several books. And so from an accessibility standpoint as well, for your adult readers who might not be able to handle full adult content, having IP work is definitely helpful.
Okay, I have a question about events. Our local library just did a Bluey event and 350 families showed up. Wow. So I guess what my question is it one, legal to do events surrounding IP characters? How do you get permission if you can? Are there event kits available from certain publishers? What kind of success have you had if you've had them?
So we've had a huge success with costume tours right now. We had stopped doing them for a minute because some of those IPs were outdated and we just didn't see the love for them. And we're like, well, let's just try and bring newer IPs in, and have had a crazy amount of success with them, of families just coming out because they were Googling what to do with kids, or is there a Bluey event, or is there something? We've done Crayon, we've done Clifford, some of the older ones. There are more, if you are a publisher in the room, hey, make more costumes. That would be huge. There are, I know some people, not libraries, but costume party people that have tried to do certain IPs and have got shut down. So be very, aware that you're going through all the proper legal channels to look into those costumes and that you're not getting somebody's costume that they built in their backyard. And now that you have Bluey in your store and it's Bluey. But also looking at, you can do like a Bluey themed day and you can have, like a new release of a new Bluey book and you can just have a book party for that. We've had success with those.
If you're ever uncertain, just ask your sales rep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can ask like, hey, do you have any merch sitting around for where the crayons are or anything that you're looking for? And usually the answer is yes, it is in somebody's house.
I have a question about locations, and when you talk about putting like your Blue potty book in your potty section, or when you're talking about moving your displays around, how do you track where you put those for your staff so that they can find them when people come and asking for things?
We do, we move things a lot at the kids store. So we have a staff communication channel that we send out updates weekly on, oh, this is a big deal, this is a big deal, this is a big deal. People tend to our departments are fairly large. It's pretty easy to see the IP, but we restock every morning. So our staff starts their day with kind of a Where's Waldo activity of finding where everything is in our store. And that seems to work.
Okay. I'm notorious for moving things around and forgetting to tell my staff. But what we've established is I will let staff know as they come into the store, like the days after I rearrange. I'll send out a group email to everybody if it's really big because I'm allergic to Slack and you can't make me use it. And also it can be just as simple as leaving a Post-it note at the desk that says, hey, this is here now. We also do restocks every morning, which does help as well. But honestly, just like a Post-it note on the register that's like, Bluey is over here now will work totally fine.
We have a running notebook at our front register that I write notes in. And also, if there's downtime, so like there's no shelving to be done, there's not a lot of people in the store, have your booksellers just wander and explore the store themselves.
Yeah, I take photos of the section moves when they're done and send that out in a group email. And if it's not me or, one of the booksellers or one of our department leads in the kids section does a move, the same thing, they'll just take a photo and send it out in the email. So the next time any staff is working, that's the first thing they check is their email and they'll see visually where it has moved.
We have one back there and then we'll come up here.
Hi, I'm Emily Bruce from Penguin Random House. We do a lot of Bluey books. In July, we're doing Bluey reads. And people can choose when you want to do that, but there are kids available for that. And there are a lot of activity sheets available on the PRH website that you can download, and those are you don't have to ask for permission to use them, not just from Bluey, from any of the licensed characters that we have. So if you're looking to do an event, you don't have to ask for permission for those. You can just download them and photocopy them and go nuts.
Thank you. We have a couple more up here while Jen makes her way and everybody notes July.
I work as the book fair coordinator at my bookstore, and so I'm kind of familiar with utilizing licensed characters and IPs. But my specific question is about our older kids. So I've noticed that these trends are typically popular with my elementary school friends. They sell really well. They're doing pretty well with my middle school friends. But high school, there seems to be a little bit of a rift. So I wanted to ask if you've noticed any success in utilizing these amongst high schoolers. And if so, is it using these exact ideas, or is there any way to modify it to meet my high school friends where they're at?
I'm going to invite you to the 5 o'clock or 5:30 Circana session this afternoon because Brianna's really great at breaking down age levels and what's latest and greatest in that area. Two groups for us that sell strongly in the YA high school space. And one is straight up nostalgia. So the stuff that they were interested in when they were in second and third grade to loop back around seems to be incredibly popular. And then secondly, our Minecraft doesn't seem to drop. It just seems to sell across the board. And maybe that's specific to our store.
Specifically, one title is Jason Reynolds' Miles Morales book.
Completely.
Is one that I hand sell all day long. Yes.
Yeah.
And I would note that over the past few years, YA has been in a very weird space overall. There is not nearly enough IP of things teens are actually interested in. And the IP we have gotten, I'm aware, like, there was a YA Little Mermaid book when the main demographic for Little Mermaid was ages 4 to 8, and like, baffling to me. So I think part of that is also just the fact that YA continues to be in a very strange place. And I think that's something we need to continue to talk to publishers about, because what teens want and need is not what is currently being produced.
Yeah, I will say, for me personally, I am 30. I'm very excited about a book that just came out. It's Alison Saff's new YA one. That is a Pixie Hollow book. It topped the indie bestseller list the week it came out. I was thrilled. And so you're also seeing some of those trends. I know I'm 30, but I had teenagers that watched the Pixie Hollow books, and they were the kids that I was nannying, which is why I'm obsessed with Pixie Hollow. And they were buying that book off the shelf. And so I've started tagging things Disney YA, because I'm seeing some of those things be picked up by teenagers, again, capitalizing on stuff that they loved when they were younger. The Jason Reynolds book. I also, weirdly enough, have seen a lot of teenagers, especially teenage boys, the hardest demographic to get ever, walk out with the Who Was Lionel Messi or Who Is Lionel Messi, like Who Was book that is out of their age range completely. Also the Who Was Lionel Messi Golden book, like they are walking out thrilled. And yes, it's not at their reading level. And yes, it's like we need more of that stuff. But that's also seeing, hey, I should probably be carrying more soccer books. Like I should be looking for these soccer titles. For these YA teen boys. So looking at also these things that are perennial selling.
And I sell an embarrassing amount of Care Bear merch.
I would also point out that a lot of where IP sales would have gone in teens over the past few years went to manga. So that might be part of why we haven't seen as many, because that fervor obsession for like a long-standing thing that they can get really into went over to manga.
In our community foundation and others have contributed to allow us to provide a free book to children at 9 of their well child checks from age 6 months to age 5. And I get to select those books. They trust me to do that. And so one of the things that I found is because families may come with twins and you can't just give one book to the family when there are 2 children leaving the office that day. So I try to make sure that I have some of the Blueys, and Pete the Cat is still very popular, especially for the 5-year-olds that can get into the leveled readers. But then if I want to try to include, for instance, more diversity or something, I'll find the second and the third title options that are non-Bluey. And it's been really interesting because the pediatricians can't send me pictures with children's faces in them, but they can send me pictures with reactions. And the reactions are similar across the board. Of course, they love Bluey because they recognize it, but also because they see themselves in some of the other books, and that's particularly special. I would encourage publishers to allow us to do things like that, to continue to print more bilingual books so that if a family's parents are Spanish speaking and not English readers yet, they can still read the book with their children who are learning English, and it's a shared activity. I would also say that it would be very helpful if you maybe reach out in your communities to some of these pediatric practices and others to see if that's a possibility. Our B2B programs with the publishers are exceptional, and then I can offer discounts to them, and it really, really works well to build a foundation of not just reading, but loving books and having them in their homes.
Hear, hear. That's a tremendous idea and a great addition to our to-do list as we go back to explore. Thank you for that. It was really helpful.
Hi. So one of the wild things about IP, I have always thought, is that it is often split up among multiple publishers. And, you know, there's the concern of going through multiple catalogs and maybe overbuying for a section. Mm-hmm. But the other concern I have is sometimes I will see a publisher that I've never heard of or is new to a rep that has, say, Bluey books. This happened to me last week. Do you have any suggestions other than the traditional bringing in the book and trying it in your store to judge quality of new publishers, or what is the best of the licensed books? Once we've already committed to bringing in Bluey or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or whatever, how do we make sure we're getting the best of what's out there across publishers?
Accepted by buyers.
I think having a really good relationship with your reps, it's hard when they are new, but even, getting a feel for them before you have your appointment or before you submit your front list with them. I always try and ask for a sample if possible. I know publishers in the room, I know that's not always feasible. I hear you. It does help us, even if it's like, hey, it's not complete. Can I just see what this pop-up is going to look like? Or, if this is an interactive, like there's a paint sample or there's something else, can I, get a quality of this? Also, easy checking if it's a smaller young, or, you don't really know their backlist or whatever. Is it available on his Ingram? Like, some of those easier channels to just assess if it's not, or I hate this, but sometimes it is dire. Checking some of the large box stores to see do they have these titles? Because we also know that we are wanting to carry some of these licensed properties to compete with the big box stores. We know that if we don't have Bluey on our shelves, they will go get it from somewhere else. If those stores aren't carrying some of these more out there or smaller things, is it because they are just a small press and they don't know, or is it because the quality is not there? That's all I know.
Hi, my name is Tori. This is something that I've been trying to figure out how to phrase this to where it makes sense, but I just think it would be interesting for people who are focused on children's books. I'm from Tennessee, which means that I am in a state where our legislators are chomping at the bit for banned books. They're so pumped that they get to do that now. And it's become something that I am constantly, kind of working against. Like, so I guess my question is, if you have been dealing with this, and how do you sort of react to with your displays, how you're buying things? Do the book bans affect that? If they do, how do you sort of balance between, just what everybody's wanting to have in, and also wanting to make sure that people are seeing hey, this is where we don't want these books to be banned? And because I think kids, don't care. Kids aren't always I care about book bans. So I don't know, what do you mean by that? I'm here to read Bluey. But sometimes I think it's important. To have those books in. But I guess my question would be, how do you balance sort of those ideas with what kids actually want to read, what you feel like you want to have accessible to kids? Where do you kind of draw that line?
There is no line. There's just and. Yeah. I think about that all the time. And first of all, let me just say that I hear the struggle that you are facing. I am facing it too. We are patriots on the front lines together. This is really, really hard, and children's booksellers are in a place we have never been before. We are stronger together, but we have to share information, we have to share support, and we have to just keep talking about it. This is hard. But yes, I think it's and. I think we carry the full breadth of books that we feel passionate and strong about. I think we create windows and doors in our stores. I think some of those windows are our licensed product. I think diversity has never been more important on the covers and the content of our books.
And I would just remind everybody, a lot of the publishers here and in the house are already doing a lot of good work to fight against this. But we have an incredible resource here at the ABA in regards to Philomena. If you are struggling with book bans in your community and you need assistance or ideas or just support, please reach out to her. She is an absolute gem, and the ABA is here as a resource to help you. So if you are dealing with this in your community, please go talk to her, talk to the ABA to make sure you have the resources you need in this fight.
Stop at the ADB desk. It's right by the registration desk where you got your badge on the way in. Pick up information, connect with them, and let's keep talking about it. We are coming up on time, aren't we?
We are coming up on time, but we have one question left. So you can get Philomena's Right to Read handbook at the ADB desk as well for a donation.
Yes.
My name is Roxanne. I just have a comment. I live in Granbury, Texas, which if you have seen USA Today in the last year, we were the leaders of like ridiculously stupid banned books. And I just thought I would tell you how we handled it in our bookstore since we're pioneers. We put in a huge banned book section. We put it in the middle of the store, not the front, and we discovered that the people who ban books don't actually read them or go to bookstores. So they never saw them. They never saw us. We had no problem at all. And I feel that our community really supported us heartily, even though they are like so staunchly Republican. It's just scary. But it worked out okay. So don't be intimidated by people banning books. Put out whatever you think people should read.
I am from a very lucky area. We maybe deal with one banned book a year, if that. But I have no patience. I don't have it in me. I will order the banned books in droves. Try me. That's really what it is. But also, in the same vein, make sure that like you have safety precautions like in place for if the people that are not actually reading the books, like you say, come in and they want to start a fight. Make sure you're being safe.
And I think the way that we fight this is they want us to stop carrying these books. We're not going to. We're going to continue to buy the books and carry the books that champion all of the things they're trying to get rid of. Carrying licensed titles doesn't diminish that. It allows more readers into our stores so they can find the stories that they see themselves in. As long as a child walks into our stores and they feel known and seen and loved in a book that they've never picked up before, we are winning.
When we talk,
That is an absolutely perfect place for me to thank you for coming, being in community with us and sharing your wisdom and ideas, and to remind you that we have a survey to fill out. It's in the app. We need feedback so that ABA can design education programs and talk about the topics that you want to talk about. Have a wonderful conference. We're going to hang around and chat for a few minutes, but thanks for being with us this afternoon.
and don't forget to come to the 5:30 session on data. It's so interesting. Please come.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA site at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!